There's a strange kind of disappointment that only true action movie fans understand. You watch a trailer packed with explosive shots, brutal hand-to-hand combat, or a dramatic moment that seems too good to miss. You buy the ticket. You sit down. You wait for that scene, the one that sold you on the entire movie. And then, it never comes. It's gone. Missing, erased, as if it never existed. Hollywood has always treated trailers like a parallel universe, one where footage doesn't have to match the final film, and sometimes doesn't even come from it. In the 80 seconds and 90 seconds especially, studios were known to shoot scenes exclusively for marketing, or to include raw footage that would later be cut after test screenings, censorship demands, creative arguments, or full rewrites. Sometimes the scenes were removed just days before release. And in a few cases, the scenes were never meant to be in the movie at all, despite being featured prominently in promotional material. Tonight, we're diving into that forgotten world, the action moments that survived only in trailers. These are scenes that fans rewound on VHS previews, paused frame by frame on DVD specials, and debated for decades because they never appeared in the final cut. Lost fights, lost explosions, lost character beats, even entire subplots that vanished but can still be glimpsed for a split second in a trailer no one was supposed to remember. So buckle in, because the 15 films on this list didn't just cut scenes, they cut promised scenes. Scenes that shaped expectations, misled audiences, or hinted at a darker, more violent, more ambitious version of the movie we never got to see. This is Action Undone, and these are the action films whose most intriguing scenes lived and died inside their own trailers. Fact 1. The Specialist, 1994. For years, fans of The Specialist have argued about one specific trailer shot. A massive nighttime explosion illuminating an entire street as debris rains down in slow motion. It's bold, fiery, and so cleanly executed that it became the centerpiece of the film's marketing. Yet anyone who watched the final cut noticed something odd. The explosion never happens. Not even a trace of it. The movie contains plenty of pyrotechnics, but none match the visual style, angle, or setting of the shot used in the promotional campaign. The missing explosion wasn't a minor moment either. The trailer framed it like a key turning point in Ray Quick's revenge plan, hinting at a larger, more chaotic chain of events. But according to crew members who discussed the production years later, the footage came from an early effects test sequence, shot months before official filming started. Instead of using CGI mock-ups, the studio commissioned a practical demolition to generate marketing-friendly visuals. When principal photography finished, the test scene no longer matched the story's new pacing or tone. Sylvester Stallone and director Luis Llosa had reshaped the structure, shifting emphasis to more intimate bomb placements rather than large-scale destruction. The test explosion felt too big, too loud, too separated from the film's emotional core, but MGM loved how it looked and they kept it in the trailer anyway. The result? Audiences walked into the theater waiting for a spectacular nighttime fireball that never arrived. Decades later, that single missing explosion has become one of the most discussed phantom scenes of Stallone's career. A perfectly shot action moment preserved only in a trailer, forever disconnected from the movie it supposedly belonged to. FACT, To Sudden Death, 1995. If you watched the trailer for Sudden Death, you likely remember a brutal, claustrophobic bathroom fight. Jean-Claude Van Damme slamming an attacker into a mirror, ducking behind stalls and trading fast. Violent blows in a cramped restroom lit with sickly green fluorescent light. The scene stands out because it feels rawer and more vicious than much of the finished film's choreography. But once the movie begins, that entire confrontation vanishes. Not a frame of it appears anywhere in the final cut. The missing bathroom fight wasn't just extra footage. It was originally part of a longer, darker mid-film sequence where Darren McCord is forced into close-quarters combat while trying to retrieve his daughter. Early drafts of the script positioned this moment as a key escalation, showing Darren abandon restraint and embrace a more desperate, survival-driven mindset. However, During editing, Universal removed the scene after test screenings suggested the pacing lagged during the arena sequences. Producers wanted the tension to stay focused on the hostage situation and the ticking time bomb storyline, not a side fight that slowed momentum. They also worried the brutality went too far, for a film already pushing the limits of PG-13 to our expectations. The trailer was already cut by this point, and because Van Damme's image relied heavily on showcasing his fight abilities, the marketing team refused to remove the scene. They believed it would bring in viewers, and they were right. But anyone expecting that intense, close-quarters battle left the theater wondering why it was missing. That bathroom fight became one of the great lost Van Damme scenes, shown publicly but never released in any version of the film. Fact 3 Street Night, 1993. The trailer for Street Night contains a high-speed collision that hints at a grittier, more violent version of the film. In the preview, Jeff Speakman's character is shown ramming a gang member's car head-on, sending metal twisting and glass exploding across the screen. The impact is tight, fast, and framed like the emotional breaking point of a man pushed too far. But watch the final film, and the entire sequence is missing. The car chase exists, but the collision does not. Why? The answer lies in Cannon Films' collapsing financial situation during the early 90 seconds. Much of the movie was shot during a period of severe budget restructuring, and the head-on crash, although filmed, was flagged as too costly to include in the final cut due to incomplete stunt coverage. The production lacked enough angles and secondary shots to build a full sequence, leaving editors with a dramatic impact, but not the surrounding material needed to make it flow. Still, the marketing division didn't care. They needed something powerful to position Speakman as the next big action star after The Perfect Weapon. So they took the raw crash footage, polished it, and centered the trailer around it. It was dramatic, it was dangerous, it promised a harder-edged film than Cannon ultimately delivered. In the end, the collision was removed. To preserve continuity and save what remained of the budget, the result is a trailer selling a violent, high-stakes moment that never appears in the final movie. One of the last great missing action scenes from the dying days of Cannon Films. FACT 4 Sniper, 1993. The trailer for Sniper features a quick but unforgettable shot. Tom Berenger creeping through a dense, shadow-soaked jungle, raising his rifle toward an unseen threat as shafts of moonlight break through the canopy. The moment feels tense, almost predatory, showing Beckett at his most primal. But anyone who has studied the film closely knows the truth. This exact version of the jungle sequence never appears in the final cut. The movie does contain multiple stalk and hide scenes, but none of them replicate the lighting, positioning, or atmosphere shown in the trailer. The missing shot has a dreamlike, almost surreal quality to it, far moodier than the straightforward visual style of the finished film. So, where did it come from? According to early production notes, Sniper originally had a set of night pursuit scenes meant to emphasize how exhausting and psychologically draining Beckett's mission had become. These scenes were filmed during the first week of principal photography, using a different cinematographer and a different lighting concept. But when the team reviewed the footage, they found the nighttime jungle scenes didn't match the naturalistic tone the director wanted. The decision was made to scrap the entire sequence and reshoot the stalking scenes during daylight, which was cheaper, clearer, and more consistent with the rest of the film's aesthetic. But the marketing team wasn't told or didn't care. They took the atmospheric night stalk shot from the unused sequence because it looked stylish and haunting, even though it belonged to a version of Sniper that no longer existed. The result? Fans still debate whether an early, darker cut of Sniper once existed, but the only surviving evidence is a single hypnotic fragment preserved in the trailer, an echo of a moodier film we never got to see. FACT 5 Navy SEALs, 1990. Among action fans, Navy SEALs is remembered for its high-energy shootouts and gung-ho spirit. But longtime viewers have always noticed a strange detail. A brief, dramatic assault sequence shown in the trailer is completely absent from the final film. The trailer includes a rapid montage of the team storming a dimly lit industrial compound, muzzle flashes bursting. Through darkness, Charlie Sheen sliding behind cover, and a quick shot of Michael Biehn signaling his squad before a breach. None of those images appear in the theatrical release. The missing footage wasn't a mistake. Early in production, the film included a much longer prologue that introduced the SEAL team through a rescue mission gone wrong. This mission was intended to show the cost of failure, establish a more somber tone, and highlight the psychological toll of elite operations. But test audiences reacted poorly. They found the sequence too slow, too grim, and too disconnected from the upbeat, bombastic style Orion Pictures wanted. Executives cut the entire mission before the final lock, yet the marketing team had already integrated shots from the deleted prologue into the trailer. The footage looked cinematic and dramatic, so they kept it, even though it no longer represented the film's direction. The most intriguing part, years later, some crew members insisted that the deleted prologue was not only filmed but fully edited, suggesting that somewhere, in a vault or private archive, a darker alternate opening for Navy SEALs still exists, but until it surfaces, the only surviving proof is that blink, and you'll miss it. Assault montage in the original trailer, a hint at a version of the movie far grittier than the one released. FACTTC, Fact 6 Hard Target, 1993. The trailer for Hard Target teases a brutal rooftop chase in which Jean-Claude Van Damme leaps across two buildings while gunmen fire from above and below. It's quick, intense, and visually striking. One of those moments that perfectly captures John Woo's signature operatic action style. But watch the final film, and you'll notice something strange. The rooftop confrontation, as shown in the trailer, never appears. The movie contains rooftop elements, but the full leap and ambush sequence remains missing. This vanished scene is tied to the infamous MPAA controversy surrounding Hard Target. The original cut was far more violent, earning multiple NC-17 rejections before Woo was forced to remove or shorten several action beats. Among the casualties was the rooftop segment, which reportedly included heavier gun violence, a longer fall sequence, and an extended pursuit that was deemed too intense for an R rating. Universal edited the film down repeatedly, trimming entire stunt beats and restructuring the chase scenes for pacing. However, the marketing team had early access to Woo's rough cut, complete with the full rooftop chase, and pulled their trailer material before the film's violent sequences were neutered. The resulting discrepancy created one of the most talked-about missing moments in Van Damme's career. Fans who rewatched the trailer over and over, expecting an iconic John Woo action beat, were confused when it never arrived. To this day, the full rooftop sequence has never been officially released, leaving only scraps of alternative dailies to confirm it once existed. Fact 7. The Glimmer Man, 1996. The trailer for The Glimmer Man features a tense, atmospheric moment where Steven Seagal quietly stalks a killer through an abandoned apartment, lit only by flickering lamps. In the preview, we see Seagal slowly drawing his knife, moving past peeling wallpaper, and stepping over broken furniture before confronting a shadowy figure. It's a chilling sequence, almost horror-like in tone. But watch the final film, and this entire scene is gone. The apartment setting, the knife draw, even the lighting, none of it exists in the theatrical cut. This missing sequence comes from a substantial subplot removed late in production. Originally, the film leaned harder into psychological thriller territory, where Jack Cole was shown confronting a series of crime scenes alone at night. These scenes were meant to reinforce Cole's mysterious past and deepen his connection to the Family Man serial killer case. But Warner Brothers worried the tone was too slow, too eerie, and too far from the buddy cop style they were marketing. Rather than reshoot, the studio simply cut the entire subplot from the film. However, editors had already handed early footage to the marketing team, who used the apartment stalking scene because it looked stylish and suspenseful. Ironically, it sold audiences a version of The Glimmer Man, more aligned with a shadowy thriller than the mismatched action-comedy hybrid that audiences ultimately received. To this day, fans wonder whether the removed sequences would have improved the film's identity. All that remains is the haunting apartment scene preserved in the trailer, an echo of a darker, moodier film that was buried before release. FACT 8 Rapid Fire 1992. In the trailer for Rapid Fire, there's a distinctive moment where Brandon Lee smashes through a warehouse window while dodging automatic gunfire, rolling to safety and springing up with a fluid martial arts counterattack. It's flashy, kinetic, and perfectly showcases Lee's athletic presence. And yet, this exact stunt never appears in the final movie. The warehouse setting exists, but the window crash and the follow-up choreography are entirely absent. This missing moment ties back to how the film evolved during shooting. Rapid Fire originally included more urban-set action scenes before the story shifted focus to claustrophobic interiors and close-quarters fights. The window stunt was filmed early in production as part of a sequence meant to introduce Jake Lowe's agility and combat instincts. However, as the script was reworked to tighten the pacing, the filmmakers trimmed several action beats that didn't directly advance the plot. The warehouse window scene was also reportedly cut due to safety concerns. Sources from the stunt team have claimed the breakaway glass didn't shatter cleanly during filming, making the footage difficult to splice together. Although Brandon Lee performed most of the stunt himself, the camera angles didn't provide editors the coverage they needed for a smooth sequence. Marketing, however, had already received and loved the dramatic stunt shot. They inserted it into the trailer to highlight Lee's charisma and sell the film as more stunt-heavy than it actually was. The final result left fans puzzled, especially those who went into the movie expecting more large-scale stunts. The warehouse window crash survives only in that short trailer clip, hinting at a more expansive action film that never materialized. Half Down Below 1997. The trailer for Fire Down Below showcases a dramatic forest explosion that sends a wall of fire roaring through the trees as Steven Seagal dives behind a fallen log. It's a bold, cinematic shot, one that suggests a massive outdoor ambush scene. But when viewers watched the film, they discovered the moment was nowhere to be found. Not even fragments of the explosion made it into the final cut. This phantom scene originates from an early action sequence that was heavily reworked after environmental groups protested the production's original script. The initial version of the story included a subplot involving illegal detonations in the Appalachian woods, material meant to heighten the stakes of Seagal's investigation. To sell the concept, the production filmed a large-scale pyrotechnic effect deep in the forest, using controlled charges to create the fiery shockwave seen in the trailer. But as political pressure mounted, Warner Brothers softened the film's environmental themes and removed the more destructive sequences to avoid controversy. The forest explosion was one of the largest casualties. It no longer fit the toned-down narrative, and including it would have required the studio to publicly acknowledge the scale of the on-location pyrotechnics. They had used something they preferred to avoid. However, the marketing division wasn't bound by those concerns. They used the footage because it looked thrilling and visually striking, even though it misrepresented the final product. Fans expecting a large-scale ambush scene were left puzzled when it never appeared. Today, that forest explosion stands as one of the best-known invisible moments of Seagal's late 90 seconds output, an impressive practical effect erased from the movie, but immortalized in its trailer. Fact 10 Cobra 1986. The trailer for Cobra teases a gritty nighttime standoff in an alleyway, with Marion Cobretti advancing through drifting smoke as neon reflections ripple off his mirrored sunglasses. The preview shows him raising his custom Colt pistol at an off-screen threat, followed by a flash of gunfire that lights the entire alley. But fans who have watched the movie countless times know that this exact standoff doesn't exist anywhere in the final cut. The missing alley confrontation comes from an earlier, more violent assembly cut, often referred to by fans as the X-rated cut, before Warner Brothers forced director George P. Cosmatos to soften the film. Cobra was filled with grimmer investigative scenes and extended moments of tension as Cobretti hunted the night slasher. One such scene placed him in a claustrophobic alley ambush meant to emphasize the cult's reach and Cobretti's isolation. When the studio ordered heavy cuts for pacing and to avoid an X rating, entire sequences were removed, including the alley ambush. But because the marketing team had already received footage from the raw workprint, they incorporated the dramatic alley shot into trailers and TV spots. What made the scene unforgettable was its tone, darker, moodier, and more atmospheric than anything in the theatrical version. It suggested a more oppressive, relentless pursuit than the streamlined action thriller audiences ultimately saw. For decades, fans have searched for the original footage, hoping it might resurface in a director's cut. But Warner Brothers claims the excised workprint materials were lost, a fate common for trimmed negatives of the era. The only surviving evidence that the alley shootout ever existed is found in the trailer, offering a window into the harsher, more menacing version of Cobra that Hollywood buried. Fact 11 Universal Soldier, The Return, 1999. The trailer for Universal Soldier. The Return features a rapid-fire montage in which Jean-Claude Van Damme sprints across a catwalk while explosions erupt behind him, forcing him to dive sideways through a metal railing. The intensity of the moment places it among the most memorable shots in the preview. But curiously, no such dive, no catwalk explosion, and no acrobatic escape appear anywhere in the final film. The missing sequence wasn't a marketing fabrication. It was part of an action set piece scrapped during reshoots. Early drafts positioned the catwalk assault as the midpoint of the story, showing Luke Devereaux facing off against a squad of Unisols inside a research complex. This version of the film had a more grounded, tactical feel, before later rewrites emphasized faster pacing and more exaggerated sci-fi elements. When the studio tested early cuts, they demanded a leaner runtime and more straightforward action staging. The catwalk sequence required additional effects, work, and pickup shots that TriStar no longer wanted to pay for, rather than finish it. The studio removed the entire scene, unfortunately for continuity. The trailer had already been assembled using footage from the unfinished cut. Fans noticed immediately. The missing stunt became a frequent topic in message boards and early internet discussions, with many assuming it might appear in an extended edition. But no director's cut or deleted scene has ever surfaced. All that remains is the trailer shot Van Damme leaping through fire in a moment that promised a bigger, bolder film than the version ultimately released. Fact 12, Red Heat 1988. The trailer for Red Heat prominently features a tense shootout outside a dimly lit motel, with Arnold Schwarzenegger firing his revolver from behind a parked car while sparks burst from the asphalt around him. The preview even shows him charging forward in a close-quarters takedown that appears brutal and perfectly in character for Captain Danko. Yet none of this footage is in the actual movie. The motel shootout, the car ambush, and the forward charge were all removed from the theatrical cut. The missing sequence dates back to the film's early production phase, where Walter Hill originally structured Red Heat as a grimmer, more hard-edged crime thriller. In this version, Danko and Belushi's character were supposed to confront a group of low-level traffickers in a motel sting operation that turned violent. The scene was fully filmed, including the close-quarters takedown teased in the trailer, but after studio executives pushed for a more comedic, buddy cop dynamic, many darker or more grounded scenes were cut to lighten the tone. The motel shootout was one of the first casualties, deemed too brutal and too street-level for the revised direction. Still, the marketing department, working from early dailies, used the footage because Arnold looked intense, unstoppable, and iconic. Exactly what sells a Schwarzenegger film. For fans who saw the trailer, the missing motel sequence became legendary, sparking years of speculation about an alternate, grittier version of Red Heat. Some still believe the footage sits in storage, waiting for rediscovery. Today, the only glimpse of that lost scene remains locked in the theatrical trailer, showing a darker, more violent film that never came to be. Fact 13, Showdown in Little Tokyo 1991. The trailer for Showdown in Little Tokyo contains a blink-and-you-miss-it moment where Dolph Lundgren performs a lightning-fast sword disarm against a Yakuza enforcer inside a neon-lit backroom. It's stylish, fluid, and surprisingly brutal, exactly the kind of martial arts beat fans expected from Lundgren in the early 90 seconds. Yet in the final film, that sword disarm is nowhere to be found. The setting appears, the gang members appear, but the actual move is gone. This missing beat comes from one of the most heavily altered productions of its era, Warner Brothers, drastically shortened the film to increase its pace and remove scenes deemed too violent or too suggestive. Originally, the backroom confrontation was part of a longer, more elaborate fight in which Lundgren's character displayed his training through traditional weapon counters. The sword disarm was one of the centerpiece moments, but the studio trimmed multiple action beats to avoid an NC-17 rating and to push the runtime under 80 minutes. The backroom fight was chopped apart, leaving only fragments in the final cut. Despite this, the marketing team, having seen early dailies, selected the sword disarm for the trailer because it was visually striking and reinforced the film's East meets West martial arts identity. Fans watching the finished movie were puzzled when the move never appeared, especially since promotional stills also hinted at missing choreography. The deleted sword disarm has since gained near-mythical status among Lundgren enthusiasts. No official extended cut has ever restored it. Once again, the trailer holds the only surviving glimpse of what was intended to be one of the film's standout martial arts moments. A Fact 14 Death Warrant, 1990. In the trailer for Death Warrant, Jean-Claude Van Damme is shown delivering a spinning hook kick during a prison hallway ambush, with sparks flying as a guardrail collapses beneath the impact. The setting is unmistakable, an upper-level walkway inside the penitentiary, but the finished movie never uses this angle, this choreography, or this stunt. The entire ambush as presented in the trailer is missing. This vanished scene is tied to Death Warrant's turbulent post-production. The film originally contained a more elaborate series of prison confrontations meant to escalate the tension leading up to the Sandman reveal. One such sequence involved a multi-level ambush, where Burke would fend off multiple inmates using both martial arts technique and the environment around him. The spinning kick was a highlight. However, early test screenings revealed that the sequence unintentionally shifted focus away from the mystery horror tone the director wanted. The action was deemed too heroic and risked making Burke seem invincible too early in the film. To keep the story gritty and claustrophobic, producers cut down the fight, removing several stunts, including the walkway ambush. Marketing had already assembled their trailer using this footage because it showcased Van Damme in peak form. It looked explosive, athletic, and instantly recognizable as his signature movement. When the stunt failed to appear in theaters, fans were confused, sparking debate about whether the scene was ever fully completed. Some believe the footage still exists in an unprocessed work print. For now, the trailer remains the only surviving evidence of Van Damme's missing prison walkway fight. This fact, 15 Fair Game 1995, the trailer for Fair Game highlights a nighttime speedboat chase in which William Baldwin's character narrowly avoids gunfire while Cindy Crawford dives for cover as the boat smashes through floating debris. The scene looks expensive, dramatic, and far more ambitious than anything in the final theatrical cut. But in the released movie, the speedboat ambush never occurs. Not even remnants of the sequence remain. This missing action beat was part of a larger effort to give Fair Game a more explosive identity during filming. Originally, the script included multiple water-based set pieces intended to raise the stakes and provide variety beyond the film's road chase sequences. The nighttime shoot on the bay involved real boats, practical effects, and carefully choreographed stunts. According to crew reports, the footage was visually impressive but extremely costly. Midway through production, the film's budget was slashed, and Warner Brothers pushed for a more straightforward chase thriller. The water sequence, while filmed, required extensive reshoots for continuity and additional effects to match the final plot structure. Rather than commit more money, the studio simply removed the entire set piece. Yet the marketing team, needing high-impact visuals, used the speedboat footage anyway. It offered spectacle, something the pared-down theatrical cut lacked. This led audiences to expect an action centerpiece that never arrived. The missing scene became one of the most widely discussed omissions in 90 seconds action marketing, leaving behind only a few seconds of footage immortalized in the trailer. Bonus fact: Hard to Kill, 1,990. Among all missing action scenes preserved only in trailers, few are as puzzling or as mysterious as the one from Hard to Kill. In the theatrical trailer, Steven Seagal is shown in a dim warehouse corridor, holding a shotgun while advancing toward a group of armed men. Sparks erupt along the walls as bullets tear into metal piping, and Seagal dives behind a stack of crates just before returning fire in a dramatic slow-motion blast. The moment is gritty, atmospheric, and perfectly aligned with the film's revenge-driven tone, yet this entire sequence is absent from every known version of the movie. What makes this case remarkable is that the missing scene has never surfaced in any form. Not in DVD extras, not in TV edits, not in international versions, and not in workprint leaks. Fans have long debated whether the scene was fully shot or whether the trailer used fragments of test footage and staged promotional material. Some early crew interviews suggest the corridor gunfight was part of an abandoned subplot involving Mason Storm raiding a safe house shortly after waking from his coma. This sequence was intended to bridge the story between Storm's recovery and the final showdown. Warner Brothers ultimately removed the material to streamline pacing and avoid excessive gun violence. However, unlike most deleted scenes from the era, no trace of this one appears to have survived the archival process. The original negatives may have been lost or never assembled into a complete sequence at all. Yet the trailer keeps the moment alive, a dark, explosive gunfight, hinting at a more elaborate, action-heavy version of Hard to Kill. For many Seagal fans, this remains one of his most intriguing ghost scenes, a fragment of a forgotten cut that exists only in promotional memory. Now you've seen 15 action films that promised explosive moments in their trailers only for those scenes to vanish without explanation. Some were cut, some were reshaped, and some were never meant to exist in the first place. But the mystery remains: which missing scene surprised you the most? And is there a trailer moment you still remember that never appeared in the movie you watched? Tell us in the comments, because Action Undone is always digging for the stories Hollywood leaves bare.